It's one thing to take a beautiful watch photo, but it's another one to finish it. And in this video, I want to show you exactly how I edit my watch photos from raw to refined. To give a bit of background, my name is Jacob and I run a production company here in Copenhagen, and I've in the past few years worked together with some of the biggest watch companies and watch brands in the world. And when I first started out, I had a hard time finding any content online on how to shoot better watch content, photos and videos specifically. Because watches have different metals, glass and reflections, it can be quite challenging, and it's a very specific niche to produce content too. But now I am years into the industry and I wanted to share a bit of my experience. My workflow is usually 2 steps. Step 1, color and light adjustments in Lightroom. And this is where the magic starts. And in step 2, I've removed dust and flaws in Photoshop. Because even a clean watch will have tiny specks or reflections, dust, scratches that distract from the image. In high-end product photography, especially watches, it's easy to go too far in the second step, blur everything out, polish every surface, but then you end up with something that feels sterile. Don't get me wrong, that works well on a website for pack shots, but not on social media, because then it just looks like a render, it looks fake. And then now with everything AI, so many pictures are fake online, it is nice to see a real image, and most people can tell the difference. So my process is quite simple: remove distractions, not a character. I want the watch to look its best, but still feel real. And that is typically my guideline for when I make an edit. And as I mentioned previously, I want to be transparent here. I am self-taught in both Lightroom and Photoshop. And that means that there might be easier ways and even faster ways to do some of the things that I show in this video. So if you know a faster way in Photoshop or Lightroom that can eliminate steps that I'm mentioning in this video, please put it in the comment section. I would love to see it. So let's go right into step 1. Lightroom. The photo I've chosen is simply just a photo that was already on my Lightroom. It might not be the best photo to explain everything that I'm going through, but I hope it will still make sense. First, I do a simple color correction. I try to keep the watch natural as it looks in real life, but also give it a bit more character so it doesn't look flat. Typically it involves contrast. I usually lower the highlights a bit because there are many reflections on watches. And then I usually give it a small curve also, but that is just my preference. Other people do it differently. Just keep that in mind. And then the main thing I do in Lightroom is actually doing the masking. First, I mask out the metal of the watch. In this example, I have an IWC watch, the Engineer. And because it's not gold or rose gold, but it is silver, the color of it, I usually select the metal and then I turn down the saturation to 75 or even 80%. Depends on how far I can go without it looking unnatural. And sometimes to give it a bit of contrast to the background and the skin tones, I can even take the temperature and put it colder. So that's what I've done in this situation. The next thing I do is mask out the dial, and typically I mask it out. I add some texture and clarity. I go everywhere between 10 and 20%, sometimes less, but again, it depends on the picture. In this situation, there are so many small details in the dial that I wanted to pop. That's why I have added 14% texture and 14% clarity. And the last thing I typically do here in Lightroom in step 1 is actually mask out the shadow side of the watch. Here it's not too dark. I have other pictures where it's much darker, but I just want to give it a bit more detail on the shadow side. So here I have just increased the shadow a little bit so you can see what type of bracelet it is. I will say this photo is still not perfect. It's shot on a 90mm macro lens, so that is good. But at the same time, I only shot it at f2.8, where here, if I had to reshoot it, I would probably shoot it at f4 or above. I will say I use different types of masking tools. The one I like the best is Object, where I can just quickly select the object kind of, and then it uses its software. I don't know if it's AI or something like that, but it finds the specific subject that I want to select, which in this case is the watch, and it's pretty good at selecting only the watch and nothing else. And then with the dial, I usually use the radial gradient because it's round and the dial is typically round on the watch photos that I take. Wow, that was step 1, Lightroom. In step 2 is Photoshop, and to open up the photo that I have just edited, I use Shift-Command-E to automatically open up Photoshop and open up the photo in Photoshop. In Photoshop, the main goal is to remove big pieces of dust and scratches and other distractions of the photo. So in this situation, I press J to use the spot healing brush tool, and I use the proximity match setting typically to remove the main bigger pieces of dust and scratches I see. And keep in mind the plan for this watch photo is to post it on Instagram, so I don't have to be too specific on every little detail. If it's for a big print or website, I would probably be more detailed. But for now, in the case of showing you guys, I will not be going in too much detail. On edges, I also use the clone stamp tool. If you press S, you will get that tool. And then I just press Option to find a spot where I wanna copy it, and then I paste it somewhere else. And lastly, right here you can see many small pieces of dust. The main way I remove this is through the filter called Dust and Scratches. So I press Command J. To make a copy layer, I go up to Filters, Noise, and Dust and Scratches. And here you can see the difference before and after. What the filter basically does is mush out everything, so everything is a little bit blurry, but it still keeps some texture, so it's not just one color. And that is why I really like this tool. So I press OK. I think this looks pretty good. I press Option, and then I add a layer mask, so it is inverted. And now when I press B and I use the brush tool, I can easily just brush over the area where the dust is. And it's good for these places where there's a lot of small grains of dust or scratches or something like that. But for more detailed places like the dial here, you can see how it just ruins the clarity and the contrast. So keep in mind when you use this tool. That was my full process in short, from flat raw file until final image. If you want me to break this down further or show off how I shoot these photos, I already made another watch content tips video. And if this video helped you out, please consider subscribing for more watch related content, at least if this content is something you're interested in. In a previous video I made, I also showed off how I made this rolling photo booth that I use for watch photography when I travel to Switzerland, and I'll also bring it later this year when I go to Dubai Watch Week. And if that is something you want to see a video on, please comment in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and you will thank me later. That was it. Awesome.